Yo, what is going on, guys? This is going to be my first ever guide for the Wheel of Fate, this brand new content. So I've only done so far the first quest, so that's what this guide is going to be all about. More guides should be coming on quest 2 and 3, but today let's stay focused on that first one. So, the very first fight, we have Gorr. So Gorr has a few nodes here. He has immunity to bleed, so that's going to make it difficult for White Tiger to fight him. That's who I initially tried, and yeah, just can't apply the bleed to him, and that's really what helps her cheese him, so it's not the best. Press the advantage while the defender has an undermine effect. They gain a Fury and a Pierce passive. We have Obstinate Charge. He's stun immune for the first hit. Scared Stiff passive. Every 10 seconds, the attacker is passively rooted for 4 seconds. Timer is paused while the attacker is rooted and is reset if the attacker lands a hit. So as long as you're hitting him, you know, every 10 seconds you won't get rooted. And then we have Countdown to Lockdown. So this is a tricky node. This basically makes it so that you can't just bait special ones from Gorr, which is usually what I do, and you know, the easy way to fight him. This makes it so that after you bait 4 special ones from him, you have to essentially bait out a special 2. It's not too bad though. It's not too bad. So, our options for this fight are 2024 champions. So I have Deathless She-Hulk on the team right now, so she can absolutely be a champ, be an option. That is who I did end up using. Let's just pull up the tag real quick. All the other fights, it'll give us our pools, but here, let's take a quick gander. So some other options for Gorr. You know, when I first did the fight, I was thinking, like, I thought maybe the whole thing was 2024 champs or something. Like, I didn't really understand how it was a different pool of champs for each fight at that point, you know, so I was, like, kind of under the mindset of trying to save my better champs for later on in the quest. Yeah, I definitely think I had other champs that could have taken the Gorr. I'm not sure exactly who I would have went for. The healing was definitely annoying, which is why Deathless She-Hulk really works so well. So she's definitely my #1 recommendation because that's just who I did it with. But I'm sure there's some other champions that can work. I remember seeing someone say maybe try Shothra. Could maybe work. Like I said, I already tried White Tiger. It didn't work out very well for me. I'm sure Dazzler would work. You just build up enough damage, take him down. I'm sure that would probably work. I feel like Count Neferi would be pretty decent with all of his immunities and him countering the healing, so I'm sure that would work. But yeah, my game plan was just Deathless She-Hulk, and you're going to want to spam. I went for 1 special 3 and then spam special 1. That's going to apply these Spectre debuffs, and that's really going to help you get the regen under control. So that is what I recommend for Gorr and some other options. Alright. Let's go ahead and move on now to the next fight, and that is Dazzler. So, out of the entirety of the first quest, I only died twice. I had to use 2 revives. One of them was on Dazzler, and the other one was on Spiral. So, for Dazzler, the pool of champions is this right here. The option that I decided to go for was Peni Parker. And let's go over the nodes quick. So she has Stylish, landing a crit adds 1 to the attacker's combo meter. Power Generator. This is really the node that you need to be looking out for. So it's anytime you gain a bar of power, she's going to get 2 of these dynamo charges. And then whenever she's knocked down by a special or a heavy, you know, whatever, she's going to consume those dynamo charges, and she's going to be gaining a 30% of a bar of power for each dynamo charge consumed. But if you intercept, that gets rid of 1 dynamo charge. But what you really need to be careful about, you know, with fighting Dazzler, is if she has the Dazzling Dash active and you go to intercept with that, you're going to get faltered. And if you don't have any means to bypass miss, you're going to get slapped. So this fight can be pretty annoying and tricky to line things up. And this Power Generator is definitely what makes it so annoying. Then we also have Suppressive Barrage. The defender's attacks have a 60% chance to inflict a suppression passive, reducing combat power rate by 15%, max 10 seconds, max 5 stacks. And these can be inflicted through the block. So you gotta be a little bit careful with how much block damage you're taking. Outside in, if far away from the defender for 3 seconds, the attacker is passively rooted. Again, you just need to be staying nearby, doing hits, try to avoid that. And there is also Limber as well. So each time the defender receives a stun, they reduce the duration of the further stuns by 20%. So yeah, this was one of the only 2 fights that I did die to on that first run. And I would say, you know, it wasn't Penny Parker's fault. I would have died, like, more if I was using a different champion. Penny, I highly recommend her. She did a fantastic job, and her sync shield did a really good job keeping me alive and keeping me in the fight. You know, I accidentally ended up pushing Dazzler to her special 2 multiple times because of her consuming those dynamo chargers and getting that power gain. So I had to deal with, you know, a couple special 2s, and I'm not the best at evading them, so I was just blocking them with Penny, and her sync shield was just eating them. So yeah, I would say Penny is absolutely my #1 recommendation. But I'm sure some other champs can work here. I feel like America Chavez should do alright here. She doesn't have to worry about the limber because her stuns on the heavies are passive. And I'm assuming that it would work to counter the power generator node, as long as, you know, you have enough stacked of her 3rd dimension. So I think Chavez could absolutely be a fine option. And there's not to say these other champs wouldn't work. I could maybe see Overseer putting in some work. But I would say Penny's definitely my #1 recommendation. Alright, let's move on to Lady Deathstrike. Now, this is one of the worst fights in here, if not the worst, dude. This fight sucks. Now, I didn't die to it, but it was like a I don't know about 20 minutes. It was like a 12-minute fight or something. But I've seen other people with screenshots of it actually being a 12-minute fight. So, yeah, this fight sucks. It has adaptive power shield, so, you know, the higher the bar of power you're throwing, the more damage you're supposed to be getting. With the power shield, that's how that one works. And there's fancy footwork, so you need to be dashing back at the exact right time or be in a special animation, otherwise you get power drained. Sucks. And then we also have Hard Knock Life, so every time you parry, you're going to get disoriented. We also have On the Prowl, so when the attacker gains a bar of power, they are special locked for 3 seconds. Now, originally, when I read that, I thought it was only special 3, but no, that's every single special. And it's really, really annoying. This fight, man, it sucks. Get ready for a very long fight here. Now, there's quite a few possible options here. I haven't really heard anyone, like, figure out who is incredible or, like, a really good option at this point. I've seen some people try Iron Man, and it took a long time. I've seen... That's mainly what I've seen. I went for Corvus Glaive, and he did it. He soloed it. Again, it was about a 12-minute fight. That was a rank 2 Corvus, though, without recoils. So I think if you have a rank 3 Corvus, or if you're like me, you have a rank 2 or something, you know, it might be a good idea to turn on the recoil masteries to speed this fight along, because it is a very long one. I think Zarafa told me he did the fight in about 6 minutes with a rank 3 Corvus with recoils. So that doesn't sound too terrible. And my fight plan was just spam special 2, really. I tried the special 3, I tried the special 1. No, special 2, when you can line up the crits, did a pretty good job. Yeah, man, just this fight, get ready for a very, very long fight. This fight is terrible. It sucks. So, yeah, just be ready for that. And then up next we have Enchantress, you know, who at first glance you'd think is one of the harder fights in here, but this was actually, I would say, like the easiest fight in here for me. I think it was the fastest fight I had. It was a little over 2 minutes. And yeah, she really doesn't have too many nodes. She has Matador, which can actually be a pro player node. You know, every time you bait a special, you get a bar of power. And then unblockable specials. Excuse me, I'm a little sick, got a bit of a cough. My apologies. But yeah, unblockable specials, I kind of had to try to learn to dex the special 1. It's not even that bad. And then take your medicine. So each time the the attacker performs a successful one-time block, they gain 25% potency tranquilize passive. Now, keyword there is passive. So Juggernaut could absolutely be an option for this fight. I think Juggernaut would do a pretty good job. I feel like he's probably top 2 option. But who I used and who is the #1 best option for this fight, it's Onslaught. Without a shadow of a doubt, man. Like I said, I did this fight in about 2 minutes with Onslaught. He cooked so hard. Matador is so good for Onslaught because we bait a special from her, then we get a special. You know, we bait 2 specials, then we get our special 2. Like, we barely had to bait any specials, and we're just fully ramped. Like, you bait 4 specials from her, you get off 2 special 1s and a special 2, and boom, you got 20 stacks of degen just ticking her down. And then, again, she throws her special, Matador, it gives you a bar. You do her little prompts on the special after the special 1, and then you use your special 1, and you do a buttload of damage. So, yeah, highly recommend Onslaught, dude. Incredible option for that fight. 2-minute fight. Then we have Thor Ragnarok, one of the 2 champions in here that are not available in the selector at the end. So let's go over our nodes for this guy. So we have Brace for Impact, Interrupt Heavy. This node, if you remember the Heimdall in Epoch of Pain, it's this exact same node. So remember how that Heimdall works. You needed to interrupt his heavy, before you could knock him down with a special or a heavy attack of your own. So just interrupt the heavy and you're good for a while. So we have combo 2.5. Every 3.3 seconds, the defender's combo meter increases by 1. If the attacker performs an intercept, the timer is paused. Now remember though, if you intercept Thor Ragnarok, he has a chance to auto block you. Now normally that auto block won't stun you, but with this parry node here, it will. So be careful of that. So we have 2 to Tango. Both champions gain a passive combo shield while their combo is less than 30. And then we have Powerful 2. So the defender is immune to Power Drain, Burn, Steal, Lock, Special Lock, and Enervate effects. Additionally, their power rates cannot be reduced below their starting values. So this guy can be a little bit annoying. The main thing here is you got to be careful of the power gain. You got to be managing that power gain. You want to throw your special. Once he gets the power gain, that will disable it. But that's not to say the fight's over if he goes for a special 3, because Thor's special 3 is damage capped. This attack cannot deal more than 20% of the opponent's max health. Damage cap is increased to 30% if the opponent is suffering from an armor break. But at most, this can't do more than 30% of your health. So that's something to absolutely keep in mind, because I did get hit by a special 3 when I was doing this fight, and I tanked it, and I survived the fight no problem. So who did I use? So for this fight, I ended up going for Adam Warlock, and I highly recommend Adam. He cooked this fight again, and I ate a special 3. I had accidentally entered my pod, and that then I missed the power gain. I messed it up, misplayed a little bit, and then he went red. He hit me with it. It didn't even do that much damage, and I had the buff from being in the pod, so I was actually immune to shock, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So, and Adam, you're unblockable with Adam, so you don't have to worry about getting auto-blocked, ever, as long as you're, unblockable in your mode. If you're in between modes, you should still slow down and be careful, but when you got that unblockable, you don't have to worry about being auto-blocked or getting parried or anything like that. So, number 1 recommendation for this fight is definitely Adam Warlock. He did a absolutely phenomenal job. As far as some other options goes, I can see Null doing a pretty decent job here. A lot of champs here have something to do with power control, like Symbiote Supreme. He has power steal. Hulkbuster has the big power drain, but that's not going to work here because he has all those powerful immunity nodes. Seen some other champs that could be decent options, but I ended up saving them for different fights later on, so I don't really want to recommend them. But yeah, man, if you have Adam, trust in Adam, he's going to do a phenomenal job for you on this fight. I feel like Photon, wouldn't be terrible, but it's class disadvantage. I don't think it would be great. But yeah, man, if you have Adam Warlock, he's the #1 MVP for that fight, in my opinion. He did a really, really good job. Alright, next up, we get to Arcade, man. Arcade can be a real pain in the butt. And it's going to be harder for me to give you guys a recommendation for this fight because I used a champ that most people don't have. We'll talk about that in a sec. Let's talk about his nodes first. So he has Heavy Hands 2. So if the defender is struck by a heavy attack, a timer starts for 8 seconds. If the attacker begins charging a heavy attack in that time, they're inflicted with a falter passive for 4 seconds. So basically what this node means is you can't use multiple heavy attacks consecutively because, the reason you'd even want to do that is when you're fighting Arcade, if he gets a lot of his tokens, you need to hit him with multiple heavy attacks to get rid of those tokens. So this node is going to prevent that from happening. But as long as you prevent Arcade from gaining an abundance of tokens to begin with, you'll be alright. You won't really have to worry. So of course they gave him stun immunity. And then they also gave him parry. So if he auto blocks, yeah, he's definitely stunning you. At least they don't go too crazy on the nodes for the really tough defenders like Arcade. So let's see who our available options are. So there's quite a few options here, man. There's quite a few options. Now, there is Vox here, who I've heard from a lot of people that Vox is a really great Arcade counter. So I think he would absolutely be a good counter here. So I can recommend Vox. And then there's quite a few other champions as well. I feel like Scream, doesn't Scream have Undermine? I feel like she could probably do a really good job here. I could absolutely see Scream cooking this. Yeah, so I'd say Scream and Vox are my recommendations for most people. And then if you do happen to have Dark Phoenix, like I do, you know, I have her rank 4, 200, and I saw she was available here, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try her. Regardless of whether she was good or not, I had to try her, you know. There's no other fights where I was going to be able to use her anyways. I didn't really think of a different, better option here, so I was like, alright, I'm going to try Dark Phoenix. And dude, Dark Phoenix did a great job. She absolutely cooked. The game plan was I went for 3 special 3s first, got my passive Nova Flames on for the rest of the fight, and I just stuck to baiting out Arcade's special 2. I'd bait his special 2, and then I would bait out his heavy, and I would heavy counter with my heavy, take away the tokens, and repeat. I didn't bait out a single special 1 from him, just stuck to baiting special 2s, and that worked out very, very well for me. So that's how I handled Arcade. Alright, let's move on to the next fight, Leader. So, dude, this Leader, I was really worried about this fight because I was like, oh my god, it sounds so annoying with the close encounters. It's close encounters 2, so when you're near Leader, you're going to regenerate 2% of your max health. When you're away from him, you're going to degenerate 2% of your max health every second. Then we have Enhanced Parry, 50% power gain. So after successful parry by the attacker receives a powerful power gain buff, granting 50% of a bar of power over 5 seconds. It does not stack. Then we have Flabbergast. Whenever the defender is struck, there's a 20% chance for the attacker to be inflicted with a 5% disorient debuff for 8 seconds. Whenever the defender blocks a light attack, the attacker inflicted with a 50% petrified debuff for 8 seconds. Then there's an Ice Head Freeze. Intercepting the defender's attacks pauses all debuffs on the attacker for 10 seconds. This effect cannot stack and will not trigger when debuffs are already paused. And then there's Unmastered Regeneration. The attacker's salve and willpower masteries are removed. So, like, there's a lot going on here, and the Leader can already kind of be annoying. So I was worried, man. But, I was debating going for Spot, but I went for Black Cat. And, dude, Black Cat cooked. I think Black Cat is going to be one of the absolute top options. I don't know if she's the best, but she did a phenomenal job for me. And, you know, I feel like I just started turning off so much stuff in the fight. And then, you know, I was just be like, oh, right. And then I would parry, and then I would just get so much power and just keep rinsing special 2s. So, Black Cat, man, yeah, if you got Black Cat, highly recommend it for this fight. If you don't have Black Cat, don't worry. There's other options. Mantis should be a pretty good option. Mantis, I don't think is going to be getting the debuffs on her. So, she should make it a pretty simple fight. And then I've also heard good things about Atuma in this fight as well. Atuma cannot have his regeneration rate lowered. So I've heard some people cooking this pretty hard with Atuma. And then there's also other options, you know, Shuri, Titania, Spot. I don't know how good those champs will do. I feel like they're all powerful enough that they could find a way to do it. But yeah, top option, Black Cat, Mantis, and then Atuma is what I'd say. So that is Leader. All right, moving on to Bullseye. And if you get to Bullseye, man, I hope you have one champion. I hope you have Mr. Sinister. If you have Mr. Sinister, this is a free fight. It's free. The nodes really are nothing here. He has Purified Slate. Whenever the defender activates a special attack, they purify 4 debuffs off them. I mean, it's a little annoying for Sinister. He can shrug off some degens, but it's really not that big of a deal. Then we have Adamant Axiom. The effects of the quest and battleground nodes cannot have their ability actually modified. Then we have Arrow to the Knee. The defender starts the fight with 3 indefinite cruelty passives, each increasing critical damage rating by 20%, interrupting the defender's heavy attack, transfers 1 cruelty passive to the attacker. This is pretty much just a bog standard big Bullseye boss. So who can we use for him? So we got Nick Fury, Warlock, Sinister, Ebony Maw, Guillotine. Yeah, we're looking here, there's really not that many Bullseye counters. You know, it's Mr. Sinister. Warlock could probably work. Maybe. I don't even know how... That probably wouldn't even be that good. Nick Fury, like, kind of, but not good. Like, it's Sinister all day long here, man. If you don't have Mr. Sinister... This fight is probably gonna be really suck for you, man. How would Warlock do here? I really don't think he'd be that good. Because what makes Warlock good for Bullseye in Battlegrounds, you know, is the willpower mastery. When you bleed him, if the opponent has willpower, you know, you're power draining them slowly and degenerating them. But here, without that willpower mastery active on the defender, I don't think Warlock's going to be doing a very good job. So yeah, man, really Sinister or bust. In Quest 2, there is no Sinister, but there's like Dazzler, so yeah. But here it's really Sinister or bust. Sorry to say. Hope you have Sinister. Alright, then there's only a few more fights left. So Human Torch is up next, and he's got some interesting notes. So he's got immunity to bleed. Then when Human Torch has at least 7 smolder passives on himself and 20 temperature, he enters Nova form for 7 seconds. Then he has adaptive override. So this is a very important node that you need to be paying attention to. So all of the attackers, basically all your attacks are either going to be physical or energy based. And using a heavy attack is going to switch whether you're doing physical or energy based damage. Now if you're on the energy based damage against Torch, every hit is going to give him smolder, which is very bad. So don't do that. So always try to stay in your physical form, and you will have to use heavies. So you're probably gonna have to like use a heavy and then use another heavy right after to get back into the physical damage state. So because there is this Dawn of Protection node, which is essentially, there's 3 things that you need to do. It's on a cycle. You can do it in any order, but once this protection triggers, you need to either do a medium ending combo, land a heavy attack, or land a special attack. That will get rid of the protection, but you need to do like it's all 3 like on a cycle, and then it resets. So if you did 1 heavy and 1 special, then your next one to get remove protection needs to be a medium ending combo. So you're gonna have to be using heavies against this Torch. There's no way around it. But again, you're just going to have to probably use another heavy right after to get yourself back into your physical damage. Then we have Shed Skin. When the attacker gains bar of power, a 10-second timer starts. As the timer expires, the defender gains a debuff immunity passive for 10 seconds. Knocking down the defender removes the timer. So this happened to me at one point in the fight. All my debuffs got purified. I was like, oh, what the heck? Kind of caught me off guard. And there's also debuff to defend. So while the defender is inflicted with 3 or more debuffs, the attacker is immune to damage over time debuffs, which is really nice because some smolders can definitely get stacked on throughout the course of the fight, and then you just have a chance when you hit them to get incinerated. So that is a nice note to have. All right, so who can we use here? It's all spider champs. So I think Spider Ham is absolutely, I don't know about the best, but he's who I used, and I sold the fight with him. He did a phenomenal job. Like I said, at one point, like all my Porker Popper debuffs were removed, and I was like, oh no. I think that only happened once the entire fight, because with Ham, you're constantly throwing your special one to lock in your debuffs anyways. So Ham's flow just ends up working out really well with the notes. So I can highly recommend Spider Ham. If you don't have Spider Ham, I think if you manage to get Spider Woman, I mean, I feel like if you don't have Spider-Ham, you probably don't have Spider-Woman. But if you happen to have Spider-Woman, I think she could absolutely crush this fight. I think she would do a really good job. If you don't have either of those champions, I think Stark Spidey could do just a fine job. I think Silk probably do a fine job. I think most of the champions here are going to do a good job, except for Mystic Spider-Man. Do not use Mystic Spider-Man. Yeah. But yeah, I think Spider-Ham and Spider-Woman, probably top 2 options. Stark Spidey, Silk, probably 3 and 4. So yeah, that's my recommendation for Torch. Then we get to Serpent. Now you'd think Serpent's like the worst fight in here, but honestly, I had a ton of fun fighting Serpent. The nodes aren't too bad either. So there's Long Distance Eternity. So while far away, the defender's Fury, Unblockable, True Damage, and Power Gain buffs are paused. It's not really not. It didn't feel like that big of a deal in the fight. We have Slap Me Not. Whenever the defender is immune or inflicted with a Nullify, Fate Sealer, Stagger, they become stun immune for 10 seconds. Again, not that big of a deal. And then we have Redlining, which usually is a negative node, but here it actually felt like a positive node because I felt like I was just getting my initial bars of power a lot faster. And I don't think I got power drained once. So the way Redlining works is that while the attacker has more than 33% of their max power, they gain a 75% energized passive. If the attacker has more than 75% of their max power, they're immediately power drained down to 0. So you pretty much just want to be throwing your specials pretty much before you get too much past two bars. If you're at about 2 bars, be ready to throw your special or you're going to get power drained. And as long as you keep that in mind, it's really not that bad. But who can you use? So number 1 option here is Spiral. It has to be Spiral. That is who I used, and I am a complete Spiral noob, and yet it was probably one of the most enjoyable fights that I did in this entire quest. It was really fun. It was like it felt automatic. Like I was just spam. If you have Spiral, trust me, bring her in for this fight and just spam your special ones, dude. It's great. You can stack up so many of the ruptures. She just completely has Serpent locked and under control. She did a phenomenal, fantastic job. Now, if you don't have Spiral, that's gonna make things tougher. I think Kindred might be one of your best options if you don't have Spiral, and who wants to be using Kindred on attack, man? I don't know. I feel like Void maybe wouldn't be the worst. Wiccan's probably actually one of the top tier options as well. He's probably number 2 after Spiral. My Wiccan's not ranked up though at all. I think he's rank 1, so you know I definitely wasn't going to use him. But yeah, if you have a rank 2 or rank 3 or rank 4 Wiccan, I'm sure he can probably do some pretty good work here. But my number 1 recommendation is definitely Spiral. Even my Udib Spiral, just again, she made the fight like automatic, like it felt easy. So yeah, highly recommend Spiral for that Serpent. Speaking of Spiral, she's in here too, and man, like you'd think Serpent would be a hard fight and Spiral would be an easier one, but no. I found Serpent to be super easy and Spiral to be one of the hardest fights in here, man. She was the cause for where is it? There we go. For my second need for a revive, it was to this stupid Spiral. Like of all the defenders in here, you know, Bullseye, Enchantress, Serpent, no, I died to Dazzler and to Spiral. But yeah, man, the Spiral is really annoying, and I'm hoping that you have one champion, the champion that I use who I can recommend. But let's talk about the nodes. So she has Combat, Deja Vu, Unblockable. So if you do any of the same basic hits in a row, she's going to get an unblockable buff for 6 seconds. 6 seconds is a long time. It's really annoying. It is so annoying. Then we have Obstinate Charge again. This is when they perform their first attack. They're stun immune. Then we have you spiral me around. The defender spiral fires her dancing blades when activating a special attack. Then we have Arrogance. This is another stupidly annoying node here. So every 15 seconds, the attacker's combo meter afflicts them with a Falter passive. Falter causes their attacks to miss. It lasts 3 seconds, and when the attacker is struck, Falter is removed. So immediately when I saw that, you know, I thought, and I looked at this, I was like, oh, Prowler. You know, Prowler is immune to Falter, but Spiral is also immune to Falter. Spiral's magical and martial mastery grants immunity to Falter. So because she has that immunity, I don't think Prowler is really going to be doing that good of a job here. You could still maybe do something here, but man, I don't recommend it at all because of that immunity. So who else is here? There's quite a few champions here. Zola. Honestly, Zola could maybe be alright if you special locked down her special 1 and got into a little rotation like that. That could maybe work. Guillotine 2099 could maybe be alright. Power control her. I mean, Idoom and Deathless Vision have power control too, but I don't know how that's going to be. But my number 1 recommendation, the best option, the best option for this fight, in my opinion, is without a doubt Future Ant-Man. If you have Future Ant-Man, I think he's absolutely the guy to go with for this fight. And shout out to Zarafa for giving me his fight strategy, because I was thinking Fam too, but I wasn't sure the exact rotation to go for. Excuse me. And yeah, shout out to Zarafa. Just medium light. Just medium light combos with Fam. Medium light repeat. That's all you need to do with Fam, and he will crush the fight for you. Like I said, that was my second only death in here. It was a Spiral. But yeah, Future Ant-Man, really great option for it. Alright, then we get to the final fight before the Thanos boss, and that is this Dust here. So, she has sloped armor. Each armor up buff gives the defender 15% chance to glance incoming attacks. And I believe, like, when Dust glances, she also, like, applies... Is that when she also applies Sand? Whenever the opponent or their block is struck by immune attack or has a hit glance, they are affected with a sand debuff. Yeah. So you really don't want to let those armors stack, because then you're going to glance more, and the more you glance, the more sand debuffs on you. The more sand debuffs on you, the faster she's going to be triggering her sandstorm. So you really need to be careful, and there's this turtling node. So if the attacker hasn't landed an attack in 6 seconds, the defender gains an armor up. So you need to be attacking her every 6 seconds, or she's going to start gaining armor and start glancing you. So we also have an even punishment node. Whenever the attacker stuns the defender, 1 buff is nullified off both the attacker and the defender. And then we also have Be Like Water. Whenever the defender is inflicted with a non-damaging debuff, they gain an unblockable passive for 8 seconds. So who's our pool of champions here? So we have IronHeart, Stark Spidey, Guillotine, Angela, Deathless Guillotine, Lady Deathstrike, Misty Knight, and Gamora. So I think IronHeart is going to be one of the absolute best options here. That is who I ended up using. And at first, I was having some trouble, but then I shifted my play style, and things got a lot better. So, if you're going to use IronHeart, you want to be using primarily mediums. You can go for like a medium, light, medium combo, that's fine, but I would say don't do anything more than that. I was sticking to medium, medium, and then I started to try out medium, light, medium, and that was feeling good too, but again, I wouldn't do any more than that. And stay with the Incinerate Prefight, because Dust has something in her kit. When she's inflicted with Incinerate, I believe it gets rid of a sand. So yeah, inflicting Dust with an Incinerate or Plasma effect will crystallize her sand, removing one sand effect from her opponent. So yeah, you don't want to utilize the Prefight with IronHeart. I was about to do that, and chat was like, no, don't do it. So shout out to chat for saving me on that one. And yeah, just your Incinerates. Again, medium, light, medium combos, throw a bunch of special ones, build the Incinerates, and throw the special 2, and you're going to have a pretty good time. Now, if you don't have IronHearts, I think Angela, Stark, Spidey can both do alright here. But yeah, I think IronHeart is definitely going to be the best option. Not really too many chances to pick from anyways. And then we have the final fight, the Deathless Thanos boss. Now, he has swipe left, the other left. So at the start of the fight, the attacker is inflicted with a reverse controls passive for 8 seconds. When it expires or fails to trigger, it goes on cooldown for 8 seconds and then repeats. So you're going to have to deal with inverted controls here, unless you have one specific champion. Then there's also combat deja vu weakness. I hate this node so much. Man, it's so annoying. But you can kind of use it to your advantage here. If you really need health, you can just get this weakness debuff on you, and you can use it to heal with willpower. And so all of Thanos' specials are completely unblockable, so there is no room for error, man. Especially on that special 2. If you mess up that special 2, you're going to get cooked and corrosioned to death. But yeah, the nodes, not too crazy. I mean, they're a little crazy for how bad Deathless Thanos already is. But what makes this fight difficult is the pool. There's 2, 4, 7 champions available here. And only one of them, I believe, counters reverse controls. And that is Jean Grey. I ranked her up for this fight specifically. And she did a pretty good job. It was still a very, very long fight. This Thanos, he has 2.8 million health, almost 3 million, and once you start to deal damage, he's always going to be triggering those protection passives to mitigate your damage. So a lot of damage mitigation. It's a pretty long fight. I think Jean Grey is going to be the best option just because you don't have to worry about that inverted controls. If you can turn off one of the 3 nodes, you're reducing the difficulty of the fight by about 33%. So that's just doing the math. That's why I went for Jean Grey. I ranked her up and did the fight with her, just so I could erase essentially one node from the fight, and it allowed me to get the solo. So I think Jean Grey is going to be your best bet. If you don't have Jean Grey, you're just going to have to deal with the inverted controls and be careful. I think Deadpool X-Force should be doing a fine job. If you don't have Deadpool X-Force, you don't have Jean Grey, I guess Domino. Hopefully you can apply some bleed debuffs, maybe some critical bleeds on Thanos. The only thing I'd be worried about with Domino is if you potentially fail the inverted controls, and if that could just kind of get you messed up. That'd be the only thing I'd be looking out for if I was using her. But yeah, guys, that is it. That is the final fight in this quest. Again, this is only Quest 1. This is a guide specifically for Quest 1 because Quest 2 and Quest 3, although it's the exact same layout, the exact same nodes, the champions that you can use are all different. So this guide is only going to work for quest number 1. But yeah, man, I highly recommend the options that I said, because like I said, I did this in only 2 revives. So I think that's pretty solid. Doing it right at release, at launch, without any prior knowledge or anything, just going in and doing it. I feel like 2 is really solid, so I'm really happy with my performance. And yeah, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for my guide on Quest 1 for the Wheel of Fate. If you guys enjoyed this and you want to see guides for Quest 2 and for Quest 3 as well, let me know. Once I do them, I could absolutely do some more guides like this. I don't mind at all. If you guys enjoy the content and want to see more, just let me know. Drop a like on the video and drop a comment letting me know, and I'll be heavily inclined to continue doing so. Let's go ahead and wrap it up for this video. I'll have timestamps so you can skip to, whichever one of the 13 fights you really want to hear me talk about. But yeah, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I hope you all have a great, wonderful day. Good luck with new content. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much. Peace out.